Hey, it's Anthony from TBN here. Now, since the original Mass Effect trilogy is being released on PS4, Xbox One, and PC with all the DLC included, minus Pinnacle Station, let's take a look at how the 2008 PC release and the current PS4 version compare visually, as well as review and detail some of the interesting changes contained within Mass Effect Legendary Edition. If you're new here, we'd really appreciate it if you could help us hit our goal of 1,000 subscribers. At the Beta Network, we publish reviews on the latest games and show off graphics comparisons through our Versus series each and every week. Now onto the show. Playing through the original Mass Effect and the Legendary Edition back-to-back for this review, I couldn't help but notice the vast amount of improvements BioWare included to help push the first entry in the series up to modern standards. This remaster acting as a prime example of how just a few enhancements can almost completely alter the entire experience. In a good way, of course. But wait, did I say a few refinements? Scratch that. There is literally a whole catalog's worth of changes that makes this game heaps more fun to play. First up on the chopping block is that pathetic excuse of a cover system from the original. Half the time it wouldn't even activate, and when it did, enemies could dead set hit Shepard from straight ahead. Rest assured, you're gonna notice a drastic improvement in the cover system come launch day. The second is having AI teammates that are actually competent. I can't tell you the amount of times Shepard's allies in the original would continually rush off into battle time after time without a care in the world, or just stand in the strangest of spots whilst having an epic showdown against a wall. And you thought Donald not healing Sora in Kingdom Hearts was bad. I can't decide what's worse. Although Shepard's squad in the Legendary Edition are now actually decent. They can take down enemies efficiently and advance up the battlefield in a relatively smart manner, most of the time. I didn't need to manually position them much, if at all, for the majority of the encounters. Definitely makes you feel as if your teammates have Shepard's back. Even better is that you can adjust both allies' positions independently in the Legendary Edition, keeping in line with Mass Effect 2 and 3. And that's the running theme with the HD trilogy, Unity. The controls and general game feel of the original being reworked to suit the later entries in the series. This approach is a key focus in various aspects, like the character creator, which has tons more options and presets to choose from that are consistent across all three games. Even down to the physical spacing of boss encounters, like the fight against Matriarch Benezia. The Legendary Edition expands upon the width of the battlefield, so there's much more room to maneuver, in comparison to the original's narrow, confined hallways, where it was somewhat difficult to avoid enemy projectiles. Speaking of projectiles, the overall gunplay and Foley design are top shelf in the Legendary Edition. The gun sounds in the original had a massive kick to them, but here, it somehow sounds even better. Listen to this. And when you combine that fuller sounding audio, along with the new animations and higher visual fidelity, it just feels so good to shoot. Especially when you start sniping enemies. Since there's now additional headshot damage and less weapon sway for sniper rifles this time around. The feedback is legitimately great. That being said, the frame rate does dip sometimes when there's a lot of activity happening on the base PS4. To combat this, you can set the visuals to favor quality at around 30 FPS or performance from 30 to 60. Even though there isn't a huge divide graphically, favor quality does contain more noticeable frame drops as a result. Thankfully, the new HUD makes things a lot more streamlined and simpler to manage what's happening on screen. Not only does it look awesome, but I found the centralized health, shield, and sprint bars way easier to read on the fly. What's even better is that you can now sprint outside of battle too. Oh yeah. Okay, now it's time to talk about the elephant in the room. Does the Mako have the worst, yet unintentionally fun controls? Surprisingly, no. It actually feels buttery smooth driving around. Sidebar, is it Mako or Mako? FF7 has forever confused me. I'm gonna say Mako because it's easier. But anyway, yes, the Mako has a real weight to it that just feels kind of right. It's hard to explain. What's most exciting though is the latest addition to the Mako, the new booster function, which as the name implies, lets you quickly accelerate and speed up for a few seconds. I love this feature just as much as being able to sprint outside of battle, since it cuts out a ton of time traversing from point A to B, and the fact that Shepard can quickly dash away from incoming lasers and rockets. There's also a new target reticle for better aiming and accuracy. Running into lava won't be an instant critical mission failure, and the XP penalty from taking down enemies in the Mako has been completely removed. So now you no longer need to exit the vehicle for quicker level ups. At the end of the day though, how does the overall gameplay hold up, you ask? Well, I'd have to say it's really fun, believe it or not. Especially with the aforementioned gunplay. Having competent teammates and improved mechanics this time around made the whole experience exponentially more entertaining. I particularly loved using the lift ability to flat out ragdoll enemies into the sky and then just pummel them into oblivion with Shepard's rifles. So satisfying. Cruising around in the Mako is a lot more engaging now too, but it doesn't help that exploring a majority of the main planets essentially amounts to driving down a 10-kilometer long hallway, and the optional planets are mostly just flat plains or feature steep inclines peppered around the map. You like bland, lifeless environments? You got them. However, in regards to optional content, I did like how most of the side quests integrated some sort of relevant story or lore into their proceedings. Not that the side quest gameplay is particularly special or anything, but for dedicated fans of lore, there's a nautical ton of world building and exposition to be found here. I'm not joking, if you read through the entire in-game codex, you'll be sitting there for ages. Most of it is very intriguing, and the story itself does act as a great opener for the trilogy. Though the characters are where this game truly shines. Talking with your crewmates after each mission is very rewarding and also necessary to get a broader scope on the bigger picture. I won't spoil any plot points for newcomers, but again, make sure to speak with your squad often, not just for some cheeky romance on the side, because if you don't, some of the plot points definitely won't hit as hard and might feel as if they came out of nowhere. Then again, I would have preferred if the team was more organically incorporated into the storytelling, but I digress. The hero-villain dynamic works really well here too, especially since Shepard can lean heavily towards the renegade route in the game's dialogue options. In another reality, it could have easily been Shepard trekking down a similar path to the main antagonist, and that's what makes the dynamic so interesting. Speaking of dialogue options, props must be given to the sheer amount of recorded lines. Some of them are actual gold. This must be at least a 10,000 page script. Like, what? Although, once you break it down, only a few of the significant choices actually have any main story impact, if at all, in relation to the rest of the series. Won't be saying what they are for spoilers' sake, but a large majority of dialogue can feel like a bunch of fluff in hindsight. However, it is really cool that if you have a high enough charm or intimidate stat, Shepard can literally avoid encounters or finish off certain quests with pure charisma alone, adding to that tabletop RPG feel. And like any great RPG, the music in Mass Effect 1 is top tier. The OST has this synthwave meets orchestral type of feel, where the more subtle, arpeggio-style synths can suddenly burst into an epic Hans Zimmer-level spectacle at a moment's notice, whilst at the same time blending in pure electronic pieces that help push the game's sci-fi atmosphere. You know the soundtrack means business when you can just picture every single place where the music plays. Shoutouts to Sam Hulick and Jack Wall for their awesome work here. Well done. The Legendary Edition coat of paint for Mass Effect 1 is a substantial improvement all around. There are still some signs of aging in the directing, side quests, and specific level designs, though whether it's the tightened up gunplay and squad AI, or the new Mako controls and expedited travel options, this galactic adventure insists on its commander making a return. For all the changes in the Legendary Edition on Mass Effect 1, check out the link in the description. And while you're there, give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed this vid, and subscribe if you want to see more content just like this.